think Steve Air McNair is the finest quarterback in college football. Some people think he's on his way to the Heisman Trophy. Decide for yourself. Saturday at 1 p.m. when McNair leads Alcorn State against Southern University. College football on ESPN2.
Sunday Conversation is brought to you by Sprint.
2 weeks ago, Grant Hill was asked if he had ever played for a basketball team that had a losing record. He said when he was 10 years old, his coach was his father, the former Cowboy running back Calvin Hill. In our Sunday Conversation, the Detroit rookie talks about the lasting impressions he has of his father's NFL career, and you might be surprised to find out when Grant Hill thought he was good enough to play in the pros. Grant Hill, our Sunday Conversation with Jack Edwards.
Who were the guys who had the biggest impression upon you when you were in your formative years as an athlete, say those years between 9 and 16 or so?
Well, I think, definitely my father. My dad was, I didn't look at him as a great athlete. I looked at him as just a great dad. People would come up to me and say, your dad was such a great player. And I would think they're just saying that to me because he's my father. I remember him being old and sitting on the bench and not playing a lot, and I was like, he's not that good.
When you look back at your dad as a professional athlete, was there a series of moments that made you think, gee, I don't know if I'd ever want to be a professional athlete?
Yeah, there were a lot of moments. I think the main thing, my dad, it seemed, was always injured. He tore both ACLs. He broke his toe. He dislocated his shoulder, his elbow. I mean, just anything you can think of. He pretty much damaged it. And my memories of my father, playing football, being at home during the season, was with ice bandages, wrapped on all over his body. My mom giving him massages. Me always standing on his back in a certain spot. At a young age, I was like, I don't know if I want to do this.
Why didn't you become a football player?
My father, he didn't want me to play, and I guess, at the time, he had a couple fears. One, I might get hurt at an early age and, really mess up my career in any type of sport. But also, I think his fear was, getting some father out there who thought he was Vince Lombardi. So I went ahead and played other sports. And, by the time I got to high school, when I was allowed to play football, I didn't want to play. I mean, I didn't want to play at all. I remember in 8th grade, right before 8th grade, my dad and I were out at the high school playing tennis. And my dad looked over at me and said, yeah, Grant, the football team was over there doing 2 or 3 days, whatever, 2 days. And he said, Grant, that'll be you next year. I said, are you kidding? I'm going to be over there in the gym. Man, it's nice and cool in there. They got air conditioning. I'm not going to be out here in this hot weather. And my dad says he knew then that he had a smart son.
At what point did it crystallize in your head, I can play basketball for a living?
I don't know. I think probably in college. Probably really not until my junior year.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, I think...
Because you were consensus all freshmen as a freshman, and you still didn't believe it?
Well, I always expect the worst, and I'm always... That's just me the way I am. Going into a test, I can study, all week and all night, all week for a test, and I'm going to go in thinking I'm not going to do well. And, in basketball, I just wasn't sure. I didn't know. And, I didn't know until I got here, really. I knew that I would play professionally, but I didn't know I could do well, and I feel comfortable now.
What did your parents give you in terms of perspective about sports and professional sports?
One thing they always stressed to me, this more so as I got older and I started to play and get recognized for what I did, they always would tell me, you're never as good as your best game and you're never as bad as your worst game.
Do you try to bring the best parts of your personality to a team?
I think definitely I try to bring my personality, the best parts. I'm not saying I'm perfect, but I think the best parts, I try to share those with my teammates. And I try to, you know, I like to think that I have a winning attitude. I think I've been very successful throughout all my stages of my career to be a part of winning teams. One thing here in Detroit that I'm trying to do is, you know, everybody in this league is talented, no doubt. But, you know, not everyone knows how to win. I'm not saying that I'm the man. I know how to win, but I guess I am saying, I don't know. I feel as if that I can bring it to the table, knowing how to win, and that's something that a lot of people don't know.
When it's all said and done, and it's 20 years from now, how do you want people to think of what your career and your persona on the court and in the Detroit community was all about?
Just to be a winner. I think being a winner entails both on and off the court. You know, I see Joe, and he has something that I want, and that's 2 rings. And you know, hopefully, you know, just to win. I think one of the only ways you're remembered in sports is if you win. And I want to be remembered when I'm done playing. So definitely win, and off the court, you know, doing the right thing, doing things that help out others. And you know, if I do that and don't win on the court, then in my mind, I'm still a winner. So I like to do it in both areas. So.
Sunday Conversation was brought to you by Sprint. We've got everything you need, local, long distance, and cellular, to let you be there now.
Yeah, everybody thinks they know Troy Aikman, huh? Yeah, well, I'll tell you about Troy Aikman. He's a cool customer. I mean, I remember this one time. He was surrounded by crazed linemen. I was the ref, and I was yelling at him, Troy, run, man, run! Ha, ha, ha! No, he stayed in that pocket, threw a perfect strike, and then, oh, man, Aikman took it! Like a man.
What's up? That's it for this show. We thank you for your patronage. We'll see you after the Monday Night Football game. I'm Keith.
I'm Dan. Bye.